there's this Canadian university, they just released some study where they put me on a list, right? They put me on a list of Russian influenced accounts. Yeah. At the top of it, actually. I mean, this is typical, Red Scare McCarthyist nonsense. So here's the title of it. It's called Disinformation and Russia-Ukrainian War on Canadian Social Media. Disinformation. Wow. And when you scroll down here, don't worry, I'll go through the rest of it. But when you scroll down here, look at this. They say top Russian influenced accounts, and they've got my account up there, Richie Medhurst, on Twitter. Apparently, I have the second highest score. I'm just behind Tulsi Gabbard. Russian influenced accounts. What does that even mean? Are they saying I'm influenced by Russia? Or I influence people with Russian things? They don't say. I mean, I showed this to Claudia, who's a biology graduate, and she helps with the channel. She told me that if she handed in this paper with this sort of methodology that they've done, she'd fail because of how vague it is. Let's go through it, right? Let's see what this is. So basically, they're saying that, they're researching disinformation and people that spread pro-Russian narratives. Do you notice how they keep using these words interchangeably? They don't define them, and they say pro-Russian narrative, and then they say over here, pro-Russian disinformation. And it's very, very weird because they don't define these words, and you see them just swapping them around, which is really weird. It's extremely weird. And so here's what they say. So for them, there are 5 points of so-called Russian narratives. They say that number 1, it's implying that NATO expansionism legitimizes the Russian invasion. Number 2, portraying NATO as an aggressive alliance, using Ukraine as a proxy against Russia. Yeah, because NATO is very defensive, right? When they bombed my country, when they bombed Syria, when they destroyed Libya, when they bombed Yugoslavia, very defensive, totally defensive, right? That's what a defensive alliance does. They go to a new continent and just destroy it, right? Very defensive, totally defensive, right? Promoting a general mistrust in institutions and elites. I don't even understand what that is. Of course, you shouldn't trust institutions and elites. What does that even mean? You shouldn't trust elites. Here's the next one. They say, suggesting that Ukraine is a fascist state or has extensive fascist influences. No. No one said Ukraine is a fascist state. There are neo-Nazis in Ukraine embedded in the Ukrainian National Guard. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a fascist state. It just means there are neo-Nazis there with significant influence. But this is the definition. This is what they say. And then down here they say promoting a specific mistrust of Canada's Liberal government and especially of Prime Minister Trudeau. Oh, wow, man. You're funny. Like, apparently not trusting your government in Canada, this is disinformation. And it's Russian. It's specifically Russian, right? It can only stem from Russia. Look at this figure over here. You see what they've done? They've basically plotted a figure. They're saying this is social network of Canadian Twitter, okay? This whole thing. And they say US influenced and Russia influenced pro-Russian accounts are in magenta and red clusters, respectively. Well, I don't see a red cluster at all. I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. Is there a red cluster somewhere? They basically got Fox News in the middle, and then up here they've got McFaul, who used to be the U.S. ambassador to Russia, who really hates Russia. The president of the United States. And then down here, they've got me, Richie Medhurst, near, Tulsi Gabbard, WikiLeaks, Greenwald. Like, they've got Greenwald right above RT. What does this mean? What is this? What is this? They just threw together a bunch of names, and they're like, look, these things are related. What? What do you mean they're related? What is that? Huh? Are they saying that Russia influenced me? But how can you know that? How can you know that? Like, just they think because I have a brain and I know history and I sit here and I speak like that, this must be the Kremlin. Like Putin is standing behind me with notes, right? He's like whispering things in my ear of what to say. What are they crazy? Of the total accounts collected, approximately 25% were spreading pro-Russian talking points. And again, I'm assuming here that their pro-Russian talking points are the points that I just read to you from their thing, the 5 points. Listen, man, this has nothing to do with being pro-Russia. I'm a journalist. I'm a British journalist. I'm a British citizen. My country is in NATO, right? It's my job to criticize my government. To be a journalist, I have to hold the powerful to account, right? When I criticize NATO, that's criticizing NATO. It doesn't mean it's pro-Russian or pro-Mozambique or pro-Taiwan. It's just criticizing NATO. But for them, if you criticize, you dare to open your mouth about NATO, you must be pro-Russian. They have the correlation and then they insist causation. Do you understand? They've broken the most fundamental rule. And this is so ridiculous. Let's go back up here. They say that number one is implying NATO expansionism legitimizes the Russian invasion. No one is saying that. I don't know a single person who is legitimizing the Russian invasion. Of any, certainly not among these names. Not a single person. I'm against war. And that's why I'm saying NATO expansionism shouldn't have happened, because it led to war. That doesn't mean it's legitimizing the invasion. And just because I say this doesn't mean it's from Russia. Let me give you an example. It's like Hitler said 2 + 2 is 4. So if you say 2 + 2 is 4, then clearly you're under the influence of Hitler. What? What does that even mean? Just because the Russians are saying something similar to me, or I'm saying something similar to the Russians, doesn't mean it's backed by Russia, which is what they say. They say Russian-backed, pro-Russian narrative. They use all these terms interchangeably in this paper. How is that backed by Russia? How do you know that Russia is not using my talking points? Huh? Maybe Russia is using pro-Medhurst talking points or Medhurst-backed talking points. Maybe Russia is using WikiLeaks-backed Russian talking points. And maybe it's the other way around. How do you know? What is this garbage? This is from a university. These people call themselves academics. These people call themselves academics. These are professors. My goodness. I really pity your students. They should demand a refund. Portraying NATO as an aggressive alliance. Again, this is so ridiculous. NATO was aggressive before there was any war in Ukraine. And let me show you this stupid chart that they have here. Look at this. They have a timeline here of discussion for the 5 main narrative. So they're saying after the invasion, so on 24th of February, all of this stuff ballooned, right? There was more discussion about NATO expansion. There was more discussion about NATO being an aggressor. Yeah, of course, because a war started. And this is one of the causes of the war. They're basically implying that WikiLeaks, Glenn Greenwald, Richard Medhurst, they never talked about NATO being an aggressor until the war started. What? What are you talking about? Go and watch my videos. Go and read my tweets. I've said this since the beginning because I didn't need the war in Ukraine to know that. I've talked about Libya. I've talked about Syria a million times. I don't care about Ukraine and Russia. That's nothing to do with it. I don't need Ukraine, Russia to know that NATO is aggressive. NATO, do these people know how to read maps? This is shameful behavior. This is truly shameful. NATO was created to combat the Soviet Union. This is a fact. This is the basic number one thing that you should know about NATO. It was created to fight the Soviet Union. There is no Soviet Union anymore. And even though the Soviet Union ceased to exist, NATO doubled its membership. Doubled. Not just stayed there, increased by 1 or 2. No. Doubled. This is a bloody map that anyone can read. How is this not antagonistic? You have a military alliance, a hostile military alliance creeping up around you, and you want to tell me that this is not antagonistic? My goodness, man. If one country, never mind all of these, started, encircling Canada or the United States, they would bomb it to smithereens. If Russia started training, the units in the Mexican army or the Canadian army, the United States would bomb it to smithereens. There's no discussion. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we don't know how politics works. It's just a bunch of people tweeting. They're just propagandists. You really going to sit there? You act like you don't know what this is? You think those people in NATO are stupid? Have some self-respect, man. You're basically telling me with your study that you know nothing about politics and you are a baboon. You know nothing of international affairs. This is pathetic. You guys keep saying that Russia is a dictatorship, and Syria is a dictatorship, and there's a cult of personality. It's totalitarian and authoritarian, and everybody must bow down and pray to the supreme leader, and they're all zombies and brainwashed. And now right here, you're telling me that, oh, look, these guys, these shady Russian propagandists, they're questioning our prime minister. They're questioning our elite institutions. They must be aggressive, and they must be foreign agents. Wow, so you're basically using the textbook fascist argument that anybody questioning the government is a foreign agent. Well done. Well done. And then you talk about Russia. Man, these people make themselves look like clowns. Clowns. My goodness. My goodness. I posted this thread on Twitter, and you guys were saying, well, at least you got the first score on the second list. I guess so, I guess. You know what's funny, though? Here they say these are top US influenced accounts, and then here they say top Russian influenced accounts. And yet when you scroll back to the top, look what they say here. They say there are two sources, right? There are accounts influenced by sources from the US and influenced largely by sources from international sources, Russia, Europe, and China. They didn't say Russia, Europe, and China down here. They only said Russia. Why did they change the name? This should say Russia, Europe, and China, and yet they only put Russia. We know why, because this is basically trying to smear anybody on this list, right? Basically saying, oh, this guy's influenced by Russia. Oh, he's this and that. Dude, screw Russia. You think I sit here and wait around to hear what the Kremlin is saying? You think I don't have a brain? You think I don't know our own history? You think I don't know what NATO is? Don't insult my intelligence. Have some self-respect. Don't insult your own intelligence. I don't give a shit what Ukraine or Russia says. I know exactly what's going on. Man, I'm independent on YouTube since day one. Day one. I never went and worked at some outlet to get famous. I never went and had a job at some newspaper to, get my foot in the door with journalism. Right here on YouTube. Me, myself, I built a name for myself. On my own. That's a fact. You can never take that away. How many people can say that? A lot of them had to go work at other outlets and then did their own thing. I did my own thing since day one. How dare you, man? This is insulting. They're basically implying that, I'm controlled by Russia or some nonsense like that. And they're also implying that any criticism of NATO must be Russian. What kind of intelligence is it? What kind of logic is that? This is like a witch hunt. This is the stuff they accuse Russia of doing. Well, the Russian government put, a list of dissidents out on the internet, and they made it look like research, and now they're going to go and target these people. If Russia had done this, that's what they would say. If Russia had done this, Iran had done this, they would look at this and call it out for what it is, right? That they're targeting quote-unquote dissidents. And you know what the best part is? Do you know who the people are that wrote this study? I didn't tell you the best part. Look at this. Look at this. Jean-Christophe Boucher is an assistant professor at the School of Public Policy. He is currently responsible for projects funded by the Department of National Defense. Dude! These guys are literally funded by the Canadian military, by NATO. And they're coming and they want to give lessons about propaganda? This is propaganda. This is propaganda. This is literally issued with, by people who are paid by the Canadian military. I swear to God, it's in the same document. Look, it's the same one. How on earth do you have any credibility? The first guy funded by the Department of National Defense. Man, come on. This is like those things with the NED, the National Endowment of Democracy, which is a CIA front, basically. We don't even need the NED to know what this is, right? And I want to be clear. I want to be very clear, because I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to be like them, because what they would say is, oh, look, this guy, he got money from this and this. It's not about the money. I told you the thing about the money last, right? I brought this up last. Even if this guy was doing it for free, this is still garbage. Do you understand? And I want you to really look at this, because they're saying here that the top accounts in the US influenced and Russia influenced vectors are in tables 1 and 2 respectively. The degree score measures how much an account interacts with other accounts. Thus, a higher degree score indicates a more influential account. So basically, I got the second highest score. That means I'm very influential, apparently. Thus, So table 1 illustrates how the primary accounts promoting pro-Russian narratives belong to prominent US right-wing influencers such as Tulsi Gabbard, Jack Sobich, and Candace Owens. In Canada, we also find similar accounts associated with the right. And table 2 shows international accounts associated promoting Russian-backed narratives. Russian-backed narratives? What do you mean backed? Russian-backed narratives, that means when I say something, I am being backed by the Kremlin with money, with whatever it is. Disinformation with a D is when you purposely, on purpose, you say something wrong. You say something fake. You say something untrue in order to spread a lie. So like propaganda. Propaganda is disinformation. Then they say it's a pro-Russia narrative. Those two things are not the same. You could have someone in anywhere saying that, oh, I love Russia, I love the Russian army, for example, and they're just saying that because they're pro-Russian. It doesn't mean it's disinformation. It doesn't mean they said it on purpose to spread it anywhere. Those are not the same thing. You cannot use these terms interchangeably. Disinformation can come from anywhere. It can be about any subject. Number 3, Russian-backed narrative is not the same thing as pro-Russian. How do you know they're backed by Russia? How do you know I am backed by Russia? What is this lie? What is this outrageous lie? They think I have Putin whispering in my fucking ear when I tweet? Vous êtes malade, quoi. Vous êtes malade dans la tête. Vous avez aucune honte, putain. They have really no shame writing this garbage. Voilà, je lis en français. Hein? Au cas où vous parlez pas anglais, comme ça vous pigez bien ce que je vous dis. C'est quoi cette chiasse abominable? Mais vous appelez vraiment des professeurs? Vous vous croyez des académiques? C'est de la merde, ça. C'est de la pure chiasse. Ça, c'est rien d'intellectuel. C'est des conneries, ça vous avez inventé. Mais putain, respectez vous-même. Seriously, man, these people are nuts. You know, I'm saying that in English and French to make sure they understood. Because I saw that first author's name was in French. Comme ça, tu me comprends. Ouais? They're basically trying to do a new Red Scare, you know? It's neo-McCarthyism. This is from the 1950s. This is from before, you know, from during World War I. They would basically say, oh, this guy, he's pro-Russia. This guy's a communist sympathizer. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Criticizing NATO is not necessarily pro-Russia. It just means criticizing NATO. Why can't you grasp that? Why can't you grasp that people have different opinions? Why can't you grasp that people have different opinions and they're not necessarily this or that? I don't understand this. I'm outraged. And I think this paper, for those of you who are in university, especially those of you who do scientific papers, who do anything, you know, on the regular, you can see that this is just not up to standards. I mean, they don't define the terms that they're using. They have figures with no legends. They are using terms that do not mean the same thing interchangeably. It's really scandalous. I cannot believe that so-called professors put this out. And look at this. This is really funny, man, because they say things that just make you double take, you know? Like this one. They're saying that these pro-Russian narratives are suggesting that the media cannot be trusted as it has lied to justify conflicts like the Iraq War that benefited the West or focuses strongly on Russian actions while ignoring those taken by NATO. I don't know about the second line, but I'm very sorry for you. You should not be trusting the media, especially after Iraq. You know why? Because I remember that. I remember the propaganda on TV with Tony Blair, with George Bush, Colin Powell. I remember all of this, the entire circus. Yes, you should not trust the media after Iraq, especially after Iraq. Never trust the media. What does that got to do with Russia? Hey, go on my channel right now, find a video before February 24th, and you will see me saying the exact goddamn same thing. So what does that have to do with being pro-Russian or pro-Ukraine or anti-Ukraine? Nothing to do with that. Garbage. I've said the exact same things the whole time. I don't flip positions like these clowns, you know, jumping up and down in the circus, just trying to do whatever's popular. To the presence of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion in the Ukrainian National Guard as proof. Yes. What more do you want? They're like, there is no heavily fascist influenced in Ukraine, and yet they have Nazis in the guard. Do you read your own words? Do you even, you know, read what you write? You literally just said there are neo-Nazis in the Ukrainian National Guard, and then you're saying no, but there's no fascist or heavily fascist influence in Ukraine. Are you high? Do you read your own words? Si questa? My goodness. And it's got nothing to do with Azov, man. Nothing to do with Azov, because even before Azov Battalion existed, the CIA was working with Ukrainian Nazis. Go learn your Cold War history before you write drivel like this. They were working with Nazis, just straight up Nazis from Ukraine. Ones that participated in the Holocaust, that killed Jews, that killed Poles. They were helping them hide. They were working with them in the Cold War. This is a fact. Zelensky, he posted a picture of a guy wearing a Nazi patch, a death set patch on VE Day. That has nothing to do with Azov. That's just a straight up insult to people who fought in World War II, posting that on VE Day, on Victory Europe Day. And to me, it's so crazy because NATO's own account on Twitter also posted people wearing Nazi patches. That has nothing to do with Azov, but they are people wearing Nazi patches. How can you ignore this? Every time they try to tell you, no, there are no Nazis, nothing to see here. Just move along, nothing to see here. They post themselves. They post another photo with people wearing Nazi patches. I mean, you couldn't make this up. This is beyond comical. Let me just sum this up by saying this is what happens when you are a journalist criticizing your own government and NATO and criticizing the West. This is how they treat you. They say that Iran is authoritarian. They say Russia is authoritarian. North Korea is authoritarian. Syria is authoritarian. All these evil countries, right? They crack down on dissidents. They jail journalists. They go after people who criticize the government. What is this? This is the Western version of that. In the West, they do the exact same thing, if not worse. I sat in the courtroom and I watched a British judge tell Assange that he has to go to the United States, extradited to the United States, because he's a journalist and he published evidence of war crimes. With my own eyes, I saw that, right? I spent weeks in that courtroom watching this show trial, this kangaroo trial of a journalist in central London being treated like some serial rapist in a fucking glass cage. And now they're doing this shit with this McCarthyist nonsense. They're calling us Russian agents because we said shit they don't like. What is this garbage, man? You call yourselves a democracy? What is this authoritarian bullshit? And then they cite these crap studies that are funded by who the hell knows. This is a study that showed that all of these journalists that just so happen to not like NATO, they are, publishing pro-Russian narratives. Pro-Russian my nuts. You just don't like that I'm criticizing you and criticizing NATO. That's what it's about. How about some honesty, man? Don't give me this garbage that you call a paper. Students, university students would be ashamed to give this in. Ashamed. Putain. I'm done. That's it. I'm done, man.